Welcome to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan.
Sudeep, I was reading the notes for today's episode, and it reminded me of Cars, the Pixar movie, in which the hero character, Lightning McQueen, is given advice on how to win the race, and he keeps falling off the racetrack. He's told to go left, turn right, and he can. How stupid is that advice? So I start with that line to you today. To build depth in marketing, deep dive into sales is the topic for today.
Yes.
How stupid is this advice?
I hope it is not stupid at all. This is something that I realized much later into my marketing stints. And I thought that it will be good for young brand managers or brand enthusiasts to get to know this at the early stage of their career so that they can start making right choices from the very start.
Okay.
I don't know whether you remember one of your first few days when you joined marketing. Yeah, I had come completely new from my sales stint.
I think all of us come into sales. Most of us come into sales from marketing from our sales stints, right?
Correct. And it is, to say the least, it is very, very unsettling. Right? You're surrounded by other marketers who seem so intelligent, so erudite when they speak. Then you don't know how to comfort yourselves because you don't have a number to look at every day. You don't know what you're chasing. You don't know whatever you did yesterday, whether that is going to work or not work. Or more importantly, when is it going to work, or when is it going to take become a reality in the real world. So
Right.
it is really, really unsettling.
Right.
Yeah. Apart from that, you find everything in marketing so alien, so esoteric, so ambiguous that you almost become desperate to try and understand everything in marketing by talking to people, by going through presentations, by sitting through inductions, etc., etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're made to believe that you learn marketing through osmosis. Yeah, you sit with people, talk to them, discuss, build perspective, and that's how you start understanding what marketing is all about.
So I'm going to interrupt you here.
Okay.
One of the earlier episodes, you said when you move from sales into marketing, we tend to take solace in sales. We want to go back to sales and keep doing all that.
Yeah.
And somehow from the topic, it looks like you're veering away from the advice you'd given already.
No. In fact, this is a different way of going back into sales.
Okay.
Right. So you're right. So when you're new, when you don't know what you're chasing and how do you want to influence, the brand managers will tend to go back to their previous habits. They would they would arrange the sales numbers of every branch manager in a reverse order. And then they will speak to the ones that are contributing the most and then try and push them to do more. Yeah. Because the number for that month is what they are chasing. And they draw solace from the fact that I was able to get the number done by talking to them, by arranging stocks.
Exactly.
Right. So those are the sort of activities you tend to keep yourself busy with, at least in the initial stint, until you realize how futile it is. And you're actually wasting your time doing all of that. Yeah. But I'm coming from a point of view that once you understand all of it and then you start marketing learning in osmosis, too often I've seen young brand managers turning completely the other way. So once this realization dawns on them, then they want to participate in marketing forums, marketing discussions. They want to talk to the agencies. They want to sit through research groups, in-depth interviews, group discussions, etc., to try and build perspective on the brand and consumer insights and stuff like that.
Like they should, right?
Yes, but what they completely ignore, right, or what they completely forget is that they completely stop their market visits, their dealer visits, their trade visits, their distributor visits, etc., etc. Right? Now, those might seem like things of the past that you used to do when you were a area sales manager or a branch manager, but and this is the but that I want to answer today.
So, see, I'm going to take the brand manager's position, be the devil's advocate today, right? I've come from sales. I need to learn marketing. I need to understand my consumer more. And I have understood my customer already. And I, as a brand manager, have been listening to Cobb and listening to Sudeep Chawla, who's been asking me to build hyper empathy with my consumer. And now, why is it wrong for me to skip something that I already know and focus on something I don't know?
So there's nothing wrong with skipping something you know, except when you come to marketing, you must learn the fact that you don't know what you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So therefore, of course, you know how channel works, what are the motivations of a dealer, a distributor, or a sales team, etc. All of that is known to you.
Mhm.
But you must also reconcile with the fact that you are not now handling a brand, right? And the brand, whatever brand you're working on, the brand sells differently in different markets across the country, right?
Okay. Right.
And so therefore you start viewing the same system with a very different lens, right? I can understand your when you're new to the marketing, you also get exposed to too many marketing terms, jargons, etc. So it is but natural that you would tend to spend much more time understanding all of that. And I'm not taking anything away from that.
Mhm.
All I'm cautioning against is and you know the specific line that you said, because I understand sales, what is wrong in spending my entire time in marketing? What I'm challenging is that you don't understand sales, right? One of the key things that we have to remember is that the purpose of marketing is to create profitable and sustainable sales for their brand.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you want to do that, you would want to possibly understand various growth levers that you can employ to grow your brand profitably and sustainably.
Absolutely.
Now, when you want to understand growth levers, either you sit in Himalayas and pray for great ideas, or the best thing that you can do is study exceptions. Studying exceptions means where is it that your brand is not doing well, or where is it that your brand is doing well? What can you learn from both sides? Now, all of this requires significant amount of diving deep into sales numbers as well as sales system itself. Yeah. So if you really want to grow your brand, one
Mhm.
of the key things that any marketing boss would ask you to do is to segment your markets.
Right. So, wouldn't you segment it from the consumer perspective?
You can, but you will understand the consumer only when you start segmenting your market basis your current sales, right? So, for example, one of the most often used term is core consumer, right? We talk about core consumers a lot. Now, core consumers tend to reside in many more quantities in geographies that consume a lot of your brand. So they tend to be high consumption geographies.
Hmm.
So the way you identify core consumers is to first identify high consumption geographies and then find people who are, obviously you can find core consumers even in low consumption geographies. There's no denying that. But your probability of understanding a generic behavior of core consumers is much better when you go to a high
Yeah.
consumption geography.
The density is higher
The
in those.
density is higher.
Okay. I get that. Now, how do I create truly sustainable marketing by segmenting a market? Now, at the end of the day, after I segment the market, I'm still going to understand the consumer. Now, where is my sales depth coming in, and how does it help me create a sustainable marketing for my brand?
So there are two parts to it. First part is obviously, like you said, that you get deeper into sales numbers,
Hmm.
try to create segments,
Okay.
right? Now, let me spend just about a minute on segments, right? You can have segments of various kinds. Just from your brand lens, you can have high penetration, low penetration, high growth, low growth, high market share, low market share, high throughput, low throughput, right? And then from a category point of view, high category penetration, low category penetration, high latent opportunity, low latent opportunity. Each one of these has a different lens with which you have identified the geography. Yeah. These are all different kind of segments.
Mhm.
that one can identify basis your own sales numbers and your category sales numbers, whatever surrogate you might want to use for it, right? Now, the point is that once you grow as a marketer, you start realizing that all of these segments get created finally because of either consumer accepting or not accepting your product, yeah, against the numbers that you estimated, right? Now, there are lots of factors that influence consumers accepting or not accepting your product. And some of those factors, one are factors that are there in hands of consumer and the brand. Whether the consumer understands your brand, whether they identify your brand, whether they identify with what your brand is saying, whether you're able to create any kind of affinity in their minds or not.
I think it'll help if you can use it with an example. I'll try one.
Okay.
Sunfeast milk biscuits.
Okay. Yeah.
So they want to look at milk biscuit. Milk bikis is the number one milk biscuit. And it's consumed, I think 80% of the consumption happens in Tamil Nadu, Kerala at best. So they say, okay, I'm segmenting the market. I'm not going all
Mhm.
India. I'm not competing with Parle G. I'm going after the milk bikis consumers. So Sunfeast says, I'm going to go after Tamil Nadu, Kerala consumer. And there they come in and say they launch a milk biscuit and they say how they can be differentiated from milk bikis and how better distributed they can be.
Correct.
And they try to amp up the milk percentage in the cookies in the biscuits at best, and talk of the different kinds of taste that the milk has, and they want to distribute because ITC's got distribution strength. I'm with you there until then. Now now what do I do?
So now finally the ITC will be able to create inroads if the consumer accepts their biscuit and starts consuming it, right? But
Right?
the process of consumer acceptance goes via a certain chain, right? And that is something that you as a marketer must recognize. That chain is that consumer has to show some kind of acceptance or affinity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or some kind of conviction for them to go and ask for your brand.
Offtake, basically.
But that happens, offtake happens because of some kind of conviction in consumer's heart or mind,
Right? But
right?
a lot of it can also happen by giving trade schemes and ensuring availability.
So that is what I'm coming to.
Okay.
The consumer conviction
Hmm.
has to be matched or overpowered by retailer conviction
Okay.
for that sale to happen. Suppose you create significant demand for Sunfeast milk bikis, right? But the trader is very clear or the retailer is very clear, I'm not going to sell it. So there is sufficient influence that the retailer has to overcome the conviction that you have created in your consumer's mind. Yeah. Finally, you're not selling something which is such an essential commodity that the person would possibly go somewhere else. So there are chances where the retailer will be able to create a switch.
Right. So as a marketer, you can create mental availability and basically drive inquiries at the store. But it is a retailer who becomes a bit of a bottleneck for your physical availability, restricting entry into his store.
Yeah. Could or could not, right? So therefore, consumer's conviction has to be matched by retailer's conviction. Now, retailer's conviction has to be created by sales team's conviction because they are
Right.
meeting them every day,
Right.
right? And who creates sales team conviction? The marketing
The
team,
marketing team.
right? So therefore, when you start understanding your role,
Hmm.
and I repeatedly say this, that marketers sell conviction. They first convince themselves, then they convince people around them, then they convince world at large, right? World at large is consumer. People around them is sales leadership, your sales managers, your sales people on the ground, who in turn influence dealers or retailers, etc. Right? Once you start understanding this entire chain, then not only do you research your consumers,
Mm-hmm.
but you also try to see are there opportunities
Mm-hmm.
or threats in the manner each part of this chain is conducting themselves. If your message about your product is too complicated, right, and you don't make choices in simplifying it, I can assure you somebody in the chain will. And that person does not know the product as well as you do. So therefore, they will prioritize basis their wisdom, and possibly the simplest yet the most unimportant part of the message might get picked up. Yeah. So therefore, as a marketer, when you're looking at each part of this chain, you have to study how my message is flowing
Mm-hmm.
and how is it matching the consumer's inquiry at the store, and thereby are you creating the maximum potential impact that your brand can.
Brilliant. So, sticking with the Sunfeast milk biscuit example.
Yeah.
So, if I'm the brand manager who's launching the Sunfeast milk biscuit, now I have a sales team which has never managed to beat milk biggies in the market in Tamil Nadu, where milk biggies is the number one biscuit. Now, I have created a product which I'm convinced is better than milk biggies, and I have built a consumer proposition with all the health cues and all that, saying, telling mothers that pick this instead of milk biggies. That's too old fashioned, for example. And this is the modern health. It's got whey protein and stuff like that for kids. Now, that's my consumer angle. So what you're saying is I should take it to the sales team, tell them I've got the consumer angle done, but what can I do to help to convince you so that you take it to trade, right? So, and the sales team can then come back with saying, these are the kind of activations Milk Biggies runs. These are the kind of promotions that they run. These are the kind of discounts that is there in the market. And then brand manager needs to go back into the market to look at what the competition brand is doing, then figure out what you can do to either compete with or differentiate from what competition is doing, so that your Sunfeast milk biscuits have the blessings of the sales team, the trade, and poised for the consumer to come and pick up based on the narrative you built for them.
I will add to this. So all of this is true. Now that the companies have started placing trade marketing managers,
Right.
some part of this will be taken care of by the trade marketing
That is going to
managers.
be my question.
Yeah. So
Right.
see, I'm running ahead of you. But there is one more critical piece that you did not mention. It is that suppose Sunfeast Milk Bikis is trying to create conviction by saying, I have mashed every quality of Britannia Milk Bikis, plus I have whey protein without compromising the taste. Okay. So what are the three critical parts? All qualities mashed, whey protein, same or better taste. I gotta make all three count. So what is the most effective way in which I can show all these three to my salespeople, such that each one of them can show all these three to every retailer, and then your job is done, right? I'll give you two examples of it, the ones that I have seen in front of me. When I just joined Cadbury and I was the ASM in 2007, I was managing UP. I was asked to come to Delhi to join a drive where they were launching this new bubble gum called Bubbalu. And Mr. Yogesh Anand was the category manager for Bubbalu, and he was spearheading the launch along with Nitin Saini, the current CMO of Mondelez. And one of the key differentiators of Bubbalu was the amount of liquid that they had inside, right? And a very starkly, uh, demonstrative test was developed where they would ask a retailer to give them a center fresh. They would press a center fresh and nothing would come out of it, or very little, maybe one liquid or one drop or so. And then they would take out a Bubalu and they will press again. And when you press the Bubalu, a lot of liquid used to come out.
Yeah.
Now that was a beautiful way of demonstrating your superiority over somebody else. Now, whether that superiority translates into consumer preference or not is a second point, which the product manager or the brand manager would test and get to know over a period of time. But what they effectively did was give people a way in which the retailer conviction got created that this is indeed a better product or a superior product. So at least they can recommend to any kid who is coming in ki ye wala kha ke dekho, this is a great thing. I'll give you second example.
Okay.
I was standing inside a Kirana store near my home, and a deodorant salesman came in. He was from Nivea.
Nivea. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is the first time I was listening to some deodorant salesman talking about this. So he said ki I have a number of deodorants which don't have alcohol. Right now, the shopkeeper didn't pay much attention. He said, give me a packet of Huggies. I said, okay, take it. What he did next kind of surprised me. He took one of the competitor deodorants, he sprayed it on Huggies, and then he started rubbing. When he rubbed there with his handkerchief, the Huggies ka print came off. Yeah, because I think it had some solvent,
Alcohol.
alcohol acted as solvent and it removed the ink. Then he sprayed a Nivea deodorant on it. And then he started rubbing it. It didn't come off. It was such an effective demonstration.
Right.
Right? I could see everybody in the shop sort of interested in it. That day onwards, I have never bought any other deodorant apart from Nivea. Yeah. And I desperately go and look for alcohol-free, 0% alcohol deodorant. Nivea has many other varieties. They have alcohol varieties also. Right. But the point that I'm making is that if you understand what you want to tell, what is the story you want to tell to the trade or to the consumer, then you owe it to your brand, you owe it to your team to devise a compelling storytelling mechanism, right? And when suppose you have devised it, then you have to go to the market to understand where is it working effectively, which market is not really, is not adopting the product so well. So is there a problem in the way it is being communicated, right? Is there some loss of efficiency, loss of translation, something is happening, or the consumers in that market behave differently? But you will not discover this if you don't dive deep into sales.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'll add to that, just break it up into three parts. One is discovering the problem. Second is articulating the response as a story format. And the third, the most difficult and the most important part, is to simplify it for the context of the trade. Now, what you're saying about the Nivea salesman, he knew to ask for the Huggies pack specifically.
Yeah.
Because he knew his product was more demonstrable on that pack.
Possibly.
And that is not something you will pick up from a boardroom or just consumer interaction. And in his convincing of the retailer, he also convinced a consumer who was standing nearby.
Correct. So I think, therefore my pitch is diving deeper into first sales data,
Right.
then understanding and creating and understanding different market segments. Then you have to find representative market of each market segment, right? Then you start you interview people, interview consumers, dealers, distributors, your own team, visit markets with them to try and understand across the chain what are the factors that are impacting this market to behave in the manner that it is behaving. And that is how, by doing this over and over again, that is how you will develop depth in your understanding, right?
So that's very well put. And I'll sign off by saying it wasn't such stupid advice after all.
Thank you. Thank you for the endorsement, Sharan.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net.